Hi everyone. Let's take a look at the following example. Prove the following. 1 plus 3 times 10x squared times secant x squared equals to secant x to the power of 6 minus 10x to the power of 6. Now before we begin, I want to kind of share two different ideas with you. Idea number one is you can start with the left-hand side. Idea number two is you can start with the right-hand side. And the truth is either side will give you the same final answer. Now, I will say in this video, I'm starting with the right-hand side. So again, not to overstate this, it doesn't mean you can start with the left-hand side. It's just that I think the easier approach is to start with the right-hand side because we can try something called factoring. So step one is to write down RS, which stands for the right-hand side. There's secant x to the power of 6 minus 10x to the power of 6. And you got to apply this factoring idea called the difference of cubes. So I'm going to write this in the corner for you so you don't forget. A cubed minus B cubed is really A minus B times A squared plus AB plus B squared. And that's exactly what we do right now. So if you think about this, secant x to the power of 6 is the same thing as saying secant x squared cubed, right? So this is secant x squared minus 10x squared. You have to square the first term. So secant x square is going to be secant x to the power of 4. If you look at the middle terms, you're going to multiply them. So it's going to be plus, and maybe I'll put the bracket in a different spot here. So this is going to be plus secant x squared, 10x squared, plus, again, 10x squared is going to be 10x to the power of 4. So step one, we're applying the difference of cubes. Now, as you're doing this, you also want to think about what the first bracket equals to. So again, really stick with me here. Secant x is 1 over cosine. So secant x squared is going to be 1 over cosine x squared. And of course, 10x is really sine x over cosine x, which means 10x squared is going to be sine x squared over cos x squared. We're going to put that in brackets. Now, if you look at the trinomial, again, you want to express this in terms of sine and cosine. That's the general approach when it comes to trig proofs. And again, if you look at this carefully, look what happens. 1 over secant is going to be, or I should say secant is 1 over cosine. So this is going to be 1 over cosine x to the power of 4. If you look at the last term, this is really sine x to the 4 divided by cosine x to the power of 4. If you look at the middle term, there are two parts. So 1 divided by cosine x squared is secant x squared. 10x squared is really sine x squared divided by cosine x squared. So a couple of things I want to tease out. Let's go back to the first bracket. 1 minus sine x squared is really cos x squared. And if you think about cosine x squared divided by cosine x squared, this entire term basically becomes 1. So again, I want to make sure you're with me in the mechanical steps. If you look at everything else, there's a common denominator, right? So the common denominator is going to be cosine x to the power of 4. And if you look at the numerator, there's a 1 plus sine x to the power of 2. There's also sine x to the power of 4. So I'm going to copy this onto the same Jamboard. One moment. Thank you for your patience. We always appreciate that. Now, if you keep going, your goal is to figure out how can we rewrite this such that it equals to the left-hand side. So it's a good idea to say the left-hand side so you know what you're looking at. 1 plus 3 times 10x squared times secant x squared. So think about that 1. How can we get there? Well, what you have to do is look at this and break it apart. So I am going to copy the denominator, which is cosine x to the power of 4. If you look at the numerator, again, think about 1. Isn't it the same thing as saying, like if I write down 1 here, 1, isn't that the same as saying sine x squared plus cosine x squared? Now, the more important question is why are we doing this? Well, because if you copy everything else, you have sine x squared plus sine x to the power of 4. Your goal is you want to, again, put this in a factor form, right? So even when you look at that last term, sine x to the power of 4, you can rewrite this, right, as sine x squared, sine x squared. So again, your goal is to factor. What do I mean by factoring? So I'm going to circle some of these pairs that I'm going to factor with you. So for example, here, if you look at the this term right here, sine x squared and sine x squared, you can factor that, and this would give you, let me just go back and look at all these terms here. Now, maybe I should write a baby step in between them. So when I think about sine x squared plus sine x squared, that's going to be 2 sine x squared. So let's write that down first. 2 sine x squared. And I'm going to copy everything else. I want to make sure no one's left behind. I am showing a lot of steps to solving this. Some students need these steps. Others may skip a step or two. So it depends on where you are in your learning journey. But what happens is when I continue here, look what happens. Again, if you factor, right? See, this is 2 sine x squared. This is cosine x squared. The only way to factor is by breaking it down into the following. So the sine x squared can copy, but if you look at the other sine x squared, we write this as 1 minus cosine x squared. So again, I'll use the different colors so you can see that this sine x squared becomes 1 minus cosine x squared divided by cosine x to the power 4. Now you can put this in factor form. What do I mean by that? I'm going to copy 2 sine x squared plus cosine x squared plus sine x squared minus sine x squared times cosine x squared all over cosine x to the power 4. Again, when I say factor, I really mean the following. So I'm factoring the following to the front. So first of all, I'll collect these terms for you. So 2 plus 1, of course, is going to be 3. So write down 3 sine x squared. The reason we want this, by the way, is because, the reason I read it out loud for you is because there's a 3 there. I'll say it again. 2 sine x squared plus 1 sine x squared is 3 sine x squared. And that 3 is going to help us get closer to the left-hand side. You're going to see what I mean as I'm kind of unfolding this with you. But if you factor, what happens is there's a common factor of cosine x squared, right? And again, I'll grab a different color so you can see. If I look at this pair right there, everybody, there's a common factor of cosine x squared. And in the brackets, it's going to be 1 minus sine x squared. Don't forget the original denominator, cosine x to the power 4. Now again, I hope you recognize that 1 minus sine x squared is cosine x squared. Again, don't forget, right? There's a 1. When I was reading it out loud, I said 1 plus 3 tanx squared secant x squared. So this 1 really means I need cosine x to the 4 divided by cosine x to the 4. So again, that is the rationale in terms of why we do that. Now break this apart. You can say, oh, this is 3 sine x squared divided by cosine x to the power 4 plus cosine x to the 4 divided by itself. Again, if you look at this second part, that's the same as saying 1. If you look at the first part, and I hope you connect this, because the 1 I can write at the front. The 3 I can also write. But if you think about the denominator, right, and I'll erase this for you. This cosine x to the 4, isn't that the same as cosine x squared? Cosine x squared. You can multiply it like that. And if you think about sine over cosine, that's going to be 10x. In this case, 10x squared. 1 divided by cosine is going to be secant x squared, which is precisely the same as the left-hand side. If this math video is adding value to you, please consider to comment, like, share, and subscribe. I hope this makes sense.